morning, participants and panelists. Firstly, I'd like to start by apologizing for the delayed start. We did experience some technical issues, and also because we are having a regional webinar. You understand we needed to ensure that other colleagues as well in other regions and different time zones are accommodated for, so I'd like to apologize for that. With that being said, I'd like to welcome you all to this online celebration event of International Women's Day that we're actually going to recognize over the weekend. It's very important that we commemorate this milestone, as we are aware that the UN 2030 agenda deadline is fast approaching, and it's sobering to realize that only 12% of the SDGs are on track. If we are to meet the 2030 deadline, there needs to be a paradigm shift that's necessary, to provide practical solutions that are needed. In South Africa this year, we have the privilege of hosting the G20 presidency from December 2024 to November 2025. And critical aspects remain issues which include, but are not restricted to, the empowerment of women, youth, and vulnerable and marginalized communities. Women, are not only victims of challenges such as corruption, but they're actually the frontline defenders of integrity. And you'd often find that, the marginalized and the poor women, suffer the brunt of corruption because they do not have, the funds to pay bribes, or are often unwilling to participate in corrupt behavior. And as a result, we celebrate women, we celebrate their strength, we celebrate their resilience, and commemorate this International Women's Day with this regional event. Today, women choose to rise, not as victims, but, as architects of justice. And we all stand tall with dignity, uniting across borders, as an example of this webinar, to expose corruption's hidden toll on women, to amplify grassroots solutions led by women, and to mobilize governments, business, and citizens to act now. With that being said, I would like us to move on with the program, and I would like to invite our opening address that's going to come from the Stellenbosch University. I would like to ask Prof. Salosh to introduce Prof. Zweli, who is going to give us the opening address for this webinar.
Hi, good morning, colleagues. It gives me great pleasure to welcome my director, Professor Zweli Ndevu from the School of Public Leadership. He is one of the key stalwarts in our school, in our faculty, and in our university to empower and support women. And today, we are grateful for this type of unconditional support. I warmly welcome Professor Zweli Ndevu. Prof, over to you.
Thank you very much, Professor Pillay, Program Director, distinguished guests, diplomats and dignitaries here present, our partners from the African continent and abroad, ladies and gentlemen, and all present, receive our warm welcome from the University of Stellenbosch. Professor Pillay, we are meeting at the time where it is important for us to celebrate women because the role of women in persevering values or societal values is important. It is in this context that we therefore celebrate on this particular day women in the role that they have played in society, in the workplace, and generally impacting on the lives of many of our people. These values are values that are shared, values such as principles of equality, peace, freedom, dignity, justice, solidarity, and democracy. These values cannot be realized without eliminating all forms of discrimination against women, ensuring that their right to dignity is observed, including a right to safety and right to non-discrimination in the private sector and also in the public sector. African Union, in its wisdom, almost 25 years ago, in the Maputo Protocol, took a decision to ensure that there is a charter that talks to these rights of women being protected and ensuring that it works towards realizing these rights. Program Director has indicated that we are close to that milestone, and it would seem that some of these rights have not been realized as we are approaching that. As the University of Stellenbosch School of Public Leadership, we took a conscious decision a few years ago to ensure that we are not only observers in this process, but we play an active role in ensuring that we celebrate women, not only within the University of Stellenbosch, but women within our country, women within our continent, and women globally. We have then decided as part of our initiative in line with the United Nations call to leave no one behind, to ensure that we have events that would commemorate women, not only specifically confined to this day, but beyond this day, such as cafe talks that we have had, platforms where we invite women to talk about their lived experience in the workplace, at home, and generally in society. We have also made a conscious decision to invite women to share their experiences, especially those that have felt victimized, have felt that their rights have not been observed. We have also allowed space for those women that have succeeded in society against all odds to come and celebrate with us their achievements. So we've created a platform that is open for everyone to be able to in these rights and ensuring that these rights are not only met, but we exceed the expectations that we have set for everyone. In these few words, I would like to welcome everyone here and assure all of you that Stellenbosch University remains a partner, remains committed to ensuring that we are observing women's rights, not only on this day, but beyond this day. We are committed to doing that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof, for those opening remarks. We appreciate you and your leadership at the Stellenbosch University. We will now move on with our program, and I would like to invite Prof. George Scott to give his welcome address. Prof. Scott is Secretary General of the African Association for Public Administration and Management, also known as APAM, and Associate Professor Extraordinary School of Public Leadership at the Stellenbosch University. Before his appointment with APAM, Scott served for many years in the Public Service of Ghana in different capacities, including Chief Director, a Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Environment, Science and Technology, and the Ministry of Aviation. He also serves for many years as District, Municipal, and Metropolitan Coordinator Director for many local municipalities and localities in Ghana. Prof. Scott is an experienced management and public administration professional, and is an author of various books and international journal articles. Scott also holds a PhD in development studies from the University of the Cape Coast, Ghana, a master's in public administration from the University of Ghana, and a postgraduate diploma in public administration from the Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration. I'd like us to welcome Prof. Scott.
Thank you very much, Coordinator. Let me also add my voice to apologize for the few hitches that came up. Professor Ndevu, our distinguished guests, partner speakers, participants, and ladies and gentlemen, to this very important webinar. I wish all of you good morning, and I bring you warm greetings from the African Association for Public Administration and Management, its Executive Committee, the Council, and the entire fraternity. It is my pleasure and honor to welcome all of you to this profound webinar in celebration of the International Women's Day 2025. Today, we join the rest of the world in celebrating the significant strides made in championing women's rights and empowerment since the 1995 Beijing Conference. As partners and organizers that aim to promote and spearhead best practice, excellence, and professionalism in public administration and management in Africa, we strongly affirm our commitment to accelerate action for the gender equality in line with the theme of the 2025 International Women's Day. Ladies and gentlemen, all of us gathered here today have a shared responsibility of strengthening capacities in public administration of Africa, and that this webinar cascades from our shared vision of empowering women through education, training, and capacity building. The theme of this webinar, Forging Solidarity, Equality, and Sustainability, reaffirm our wholesome commitment to empowering and addressing the challenges, barriers, and systems that hinder the full participation of women in society. Last year, APAM launched the Women in Africa Public Administration, WAPAM, through a webinar under the theme, Gender Responsive Budgeting, Promoting Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment on 27th August 2024. This webinar reiterates the importance of gender-responsive budgeting as a tool for promoting equality and fostering inclusive development in Africa. APAM and most of us gathered here today also took part during the Women's Day event, which was hosted by the Aseri School of Public Leadership of the University of Stellenbosch and their partners on 7th August 2024. All these efforts go to foster an environment of inclusivity, transparency, and integrity in working together to dismantle the barriers that women face and work very hard to build stronger, more equitable institutions. Ladies and gentlemen, this particular webinar is significant, very significant, especially where currently South Africa is championing a crucial leadership role in G20 when global community faces unprecedented challenges in meeting the SDGs by 2030. For sure, and I believe you understand me, that a paradigm shift in system is necessary at this time if we are to accelerate progress in the achievement of the SDGs. Achieving gender equality, equity, and women's empowerment is not just an SDG target. It is a fundamental prerequisite for a just, inclusive, and sustainable societies and community. Corruption, and I must repeat, corruption is still erodes the foundations of women's well-being. It is a systemic barrier that prevents us from achieving gender equality, equity, and women empowerment, creating a just and equitable society. Ladies and gentlemen, however, today is not just about identifying challenges, it is also about championing solutions. Women across Africa and the world are standing on the front lines of integrity, transparency, and accountability. From grassroots activists to policymakers, their leadership is shaping the future of the world. Their voices must not only be heard, but must be amplified. Ladies and gentlemen, as we proceed with today's webinar, let us commit to actionable strategies that would dismantle barriers, strengthen gender-responsive governance, and foster environments where women and girls can thrive. Through our collaboration, advocacy, and policy innovation, we can turn our aspirations into tangible realities. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of all our partners for this program and organizers of this program, I extend my deepest appreciation to our esteemed speakers, our dedicated partners, and all participants for joining us at this critical conversation webinar. The presence of all participants to this webinar today signifies a shared resolve to foster future equality and sustainable and not ideals, but lived realities. I welcome all of you on behalf of the partners, APAM, and all the various organizations, and I call that let us move forward in solidarity as we actively participate and commit to this vital webinar. Thank you again, and wish all of you the best. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof, for that profound welcome address. I'd just like to remind our guests and participants that although this is a webinar, I would like it to be as interactive as possible. We would advise you to use the question and answer, section in the Zoom meeting to pose any questions, for any comments, for any remarks directed to any of the hosts, panelists, or speakers, and they will respond to you in that chat as we go along. We will also give you an opportunity then to ask questions and interact with the panel and the speakers during the question and answer segment that is going to be on our program later on. We have a program in a PDF format that we have asked our host and tech team to share with you in the chat. Please do let us know if you've received it as well on the question and answer section. We're now moving on with our program, and our next speaker is going to speak on the G20 Working Group on Anti-Corruption. Her name is Thenjiwe Dlamini from the Special Investigations Unit. Thenjiwe is a highly accomplished leader and strategic thinker with extensive experience in public sector governance, anti-corruption strategies, and enterprise development in South Africa. Her career spans over 2 decades, marked by her commitments to institutional transformation, sitting on various ICT boards where she provides oversight. Thenjiwe has actively represented South Africa and contributed to several international platforms, conferences, and research forums, particularly in the areas of entrepreneurship, business incubation, ICT governance, and anti-corruption strategies. She holds an MBA and is currently pursuing her PhD. She also has qualifications in public administration and business management and governance. Welcome, Thenjiwe. As we are celebrating International Women's Day, you are our first guest speaker, and we have a lot more phenomenal, and dynamic female speakers lined up within this program. But for now, I'd like us to welcome Thenjiwe Dlamini.
Thank you so much, our host, MC. Good morning, esteemed guests, colleagues, and fellow champions of women empowerment. It's really a true honor to be part of this event, representing South Africa within the G20 Anti-Corruption Working Group, as we celebrate International Women's Day under the powerful and timely theme, which says forging solidarity, equality, and sustainability. This is more than just a celebration. It's a call to action, a call that resonates deeply with the work that we are doing within the G20 Anti-Corruption Working Group. I would like to say that corruption and inequality are very intertwined. And if we have to achieve a sustainable development and a gender equality, it's very critical that we addressing corruption, disappropriate, especially that impact women, must be part of the conversation, not only part of the conversation when we have the same webinar, but must be part of the conversation in all spheres of government, in our society as well. Just to maybe to give a very high level, why we always link gender and corruption. If you look at the studies that are done under some journals, I just want to mention few of those journals that were done by Gumede and Hadebe in 2023 that say corruption, gender, and informal economy in South Africa, as highlighted by the Prof. this morning, that female or women are suffering a lot when it comes to the corruption. So the corruption extremely, I would say extremely affect women, particularly those that we find in the rural areas, in the communities where they depend heavily when it's come to the services that they receive from government. For example, on a social healthcare, social grant and housing, you find that for them to receive such services, they need to go do the bribe. And also we found that on other studies that has been conducted, is that women entrepreneurs, about 63% of them, for them to just to receive any support from government, they need to bribe, which is a very high number of females that are really affected by the corruption. And other thing is that we see that women are affected as well because they have a lack of political connection. We've seen those things on studies and also in our environment that we've operate, that corruption really threatens even the women in political, to participate in political. And also in many instances, we also see that female leaders and activists become target and harassment when they speak out when it comes to the corruption. One of the things that the G20 anti-corruption working group is looking at as well is the issue of the whistleblower. If you've been following the meeting that we had in Cape Town, you will realize that those are the things that really have been discussed when it's come to assisting women who are whistleblowers. So what does it mean for us today is that we need to really forge solidarity as part of this society. What does solidarity means? Solidarity means that we need to work together across gender, across all sectors, and across all borders to combat corruption, because corruption is not just a legal issue. It is a developmental issue, a gender issue, and a human rights issue. So as a South Africa within the G20 anti-corruption working group, we are championing inclusive anti-corruption strategies that recognize gender impact of corruption. So we also advocate for women full participation when it comes to the anti-corruption decision-making on all structures, so that we want to ensure the voice that shape the solution, that women need to have that voice that shape the solution when to come to anti-corruption. We also want to build a cross-sector coalition, government, society, the whole society approach, private sector, international bodies to develop the gender responsive anti-corruption policies. Those policies need to be really empower women to resist and recover from the effect of corruption. And maybe just on a summary, not in ending, is that as we celebrate this International Women's Day, let us all reaffirm that the fight for gender equality and the fight against corruption are deeply connected. As I said, they are intertwined. So let us forge that solidarity between women's movement, anti-corruption agencies, development institution, and global governance process. I believe that together we can build a world where women thrive in equal, transparent, and sustainable societies, where corruption no longer steals the opportunities, where women's voice and also are not respected, and we need to empower. I thank you.
Thank you, Tenjiwe. Dlamini, we are indeed well led. Your remarks are highly appreciated, and your expertise is valued by women and many across the continent. We are moving on with the program now, and I would like to invite another phenomenal woman, Miss Yoliswa Makasi, who will speak to us about celebrating the indomitable spirit of women. Yoliswa is a distinguished strategic leader and policy expert with over 2 decades of experience in the public sector and public sector governance, as well as strategic leadership and transformational change in South Africa. She served as Director General of South Africa's Department of Public Service and Administration 2020 to 2025, and currently serves as Vice President for Southern Africa at the African Association for Public Administration and Management. Yoliswa's expertise spans policy development, strategic leadership, change management, stakeholder relations, and corporate governance. Yoliswa holds degrees from Stellenbosch University, the University of Manchester, and Vista University, and she's currently pursuing her doctoral studies at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Ms. Yoliswa, you are welcome, and we are excited to hear from you this morning.
Thank you, Program Director. I'd like firstly to acknowledge all partners who made this day possible, coordinated, of course, by Professor Pillay from the School of Public Leadership under the leadership of Professor Ndevu, Stellenbosch University, as well as Professor Scott from UPAM. It is quite encouraging and heartening to see members of the academia at the center stage of celebrating women today. And I joined this regional seminar also as a Vice President, Southern Africa for UPAM, and the only female VP, as all my colleagues in the executive are men. I hope this picture shall change in the near future and through the work that UPAM is doing in involving women in its work. International Women's Day is celebrated annually as a focal point in the women's rights movement. The day honors women's achievements, promotes women's empowerment, and importantly, it's a platform that raises awareness about gender equality, reproductive rights, violence and abuse against women, and promotes women's empowerment. I have been tasked to speak on the topic celebrating the indomitable spirit of women. Program Director, the indomitable spirit is a term used to describe someone who is strong, brave, determined, and difficult to defeat. It can also refer to the part of a person that provides hope and courage to face each day. To me, this seems like it is something inbuilt in women. Women globally have relied on this strength in order to survive brutality, subjugation, and oppression in their lives. Dr. Dugard, in her paper, Indomitable Spirit of Women, in Gloria Naylor's The Women of Brewster's Place, published in 2016, shares about the writings of Gloria Naylor, a strong African-American voice of the contemporary period who appeared on the literary scene with the publication of her debut novel, The Women of Brewster Place. In her novel, Gloria gives testimony to the resilience and adaptability, strength and struggles, hopes and fears of the Black women in challenging conditions of American society. These women do not have fairy tale endings of perfect lives, but neither they are crushed by their very imperfect ones. They survive by maintaining enthusiasm, commitment, and resilience in their lives and are able to challenge the established system. They may not live happily ever after, but they live on. Naylor emphasizes the need of strong will, bonding with each other, rootedness in their culture, and a sense of worth in order to exist in the oppressive conditions of a white racist society at the time. She asserts that this journey towards self-fulfillment and self-assertion must be continual and must emerge from one sense of belongingness. Jean Shinoda, in her book, Artemis, the indomitable spirit of everyone, wrote, and I quote, "The indomitable spirit is an attribute in women who have Artemis as an active archetype. In mythology, Artemis is the Greek goddess of the hunt and moon, known as Diana to the Romans. She was the firstborn twin sister to Apollo, the god of the sun. As goddess of the hunt, she roamed the wilderness armed with a bow and quiver of arrows, accompanied by her hunting dogs, either alone or with her chosen nymph companions. Artemis came to the rescue of her mother, was the protector of prepubescent girls and young animals. Pregnant women prayed to her to relieve them from pain. Artemisia, the herb that bears her name, is used by midwives for this. She reacted swiftly to help those under her protection and to punish those who would harm them or disrespect her. Artemis is an archetypal predisposition towards egalitarian brotherly relations with men, a sense of sisterhood with women, the ability to aim for a distant target, to rise to a challenge, and preference to be in nature rather than cities. Chairperson or program director, in terms of this, a question may be asked: why do we celebrate women in the midst of challenges facing them and society at large? I will attempt to answer this briefly. Society celebrates women as a recognition for their contributions to society. I can't imagine a society that has no women, how it would be run by men only. There will be no population, in fact, because children are the one who gives, women are the ones who give birth to men in the first place. So as a mechanism to strengthen the call for equality. This is a call we should never as society be tired of making and strengthening the call on an ongoing basis, because as much as strides have been made towards equality, there is still a long road to walk in terms of achieving equality in society. And also, we use this day to challenge discrimination and prejudices against women. We use occasions such as the International Women's Day to reflect on the progress that's been made, to recognize the work that still needs to be done, that's been made, and to recognize the work that still needs to be done. In South Africa, we are a democracy and we have a constitution that has assured us as women many rights, including right to life, right to association, right to vote, and right to work, amongst others. Prof. Ndevu, in his opening remarks, also touched on his rights and our constitution in detail. Women have played a significant role in advancing our society locally and globally. And we know that when women lead, there are benefits to all in society. Women take care of children, women take care of the needy, and women take care of the vulnerable as society, as priority. This, in my view, is not a weakness in women, but it is a strength, because a society is judged on how it takes care of, firstly, its own women, its own children, its own needy, and the vulnerable. In celebrating, we should not be blind to the fact that women continue to experience a number of challenges. Globally, women continue to experience acute oppression and hostile system of racist societies where male privileges are the order of the day. Women continue to be killed by their partners and lovers in what is meant to be a safe space for them, their homes and their communities. Female students in higher education institutions, we read recently, continue to be harassed by landlords for sex as the system fails at them by not paying their rent on time. This was reported in the newspapers recently, in a Sunday newspaper. We need this indomitable spirit of Black womanhood, as reflected by Gloria Naylor, a spirit that refuses to give in to the patriarchal system that continues to oppress women and treats them as inferior. So we celebrate women through, amongst others, attending events of this nature, use our voices to speak out against discrimination and prejudice, support organizations that advocate for women's rights, educate ourselves about the contributions of women to society. As I conclude, Chair, I do want to emphasize the call for women to be active participants in the fight against corruption and grab opportunities presented by G20 as a collective. I have noted the silence of women in the space of G20 currently, and I think it is important that those of us who are part of the women's movement really work harder to strengthen the voice of women to take up its role in terms of this particular space. I have seen the youth are starting to organize themselves and are being active. I've seen businesses organized itself. I've seen the civil society is organizing itself as well. And there is an opportunity. Women is a cross-cutting area. There is an opportunity to integrate with business, to integrate with civil society, to integrate with young people, because the plight of young women as well is a plight that we don't give attention to in a number of times, and as women who are active in the women's movement. So I do want to say, I do hope that out of this regional conference, we will really see a greater movement by women in integrating themselves in the G20 work, in particular the work stream against corruption. And as there has been a lot of strides in that work stream to ensure that there is participation of all different sectors and all different specialized groups such as women and children and people with disabilities. Program Director, thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in this important discussion, and I look forward to engagements after the presentations by panel members. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Yoliswa, for contributing to the voices of our public sector generals. And, you know, we are well led, and we appreciate your leadership in the public sector. We're now moving on to a healthcare specialist. As we know, you know, women's health is also an issue in many different African countries. I would now like to invite Dr. Phumi Mamdu, who's going to give us a video presentation with women voices in accelerating action. Dr. Phumi.
Hi there. Thank you.
Hi. I'm still introducing you, Dr. Phumi.
Go ahead.
Dr. Phumi is a medical doctor specializing in public health medicine. She has more than 17 years of experience in health systems, strengthening and you know, maintaining the public sector, and is a fellow of the College of Medicine, South Africa. Phumi has an MBA in international economics, along with diplomas in business management and family medicine. So while we don't only have a doctor, we also have an economist and you know, a public sector specialist. Dr. Phumi has held various positions in the public sector, including, but not restricted to, senior medical superintendent and acting CEO, as well as a legal advisor, a medical legal advisor, inspector of anatomy, as well as in the private sector and development sectors. She's held positions that include medical director, health systems expert, researcher, advisor, and an independent consultant. Dr. Phumi has both local and international experience in her fields of expertise. And in February 2021, she co-founded a nonprofit organization called Sphere, who is one of the partners of this webinar. And she is focusing on evidence-based tech-appropriate health solutions in marginalized communities. Again, welcome, Dr. Phumi.
Thank you very much. Just a little bit before we launch into the video, thank you everybody for allowing Sphere this opportunity to present to you. And thank you to the organizers of the conference, much appreciated, all protocols observed. Just our Sphere point of view before we begin. A lot of the previous speakers have spoken to this. We want to say that policies are definitely the blueprints for change, but their true impact is really measured by how effectively it gets translated on the ground into real world improvements, how it affects people's lives. So in this video that you're about to watch, we will really see people's perspectives when policies fail in execution and where women are disproportionately affected, because women need public services more. They need social grants, and the healthcare systems need to be robust enough to cater for women's needs. Apart from that, I wanted to just introduce Sphere. We're a nonprofit company working in the Western Cape, Eastern Cape. We have reach into Limpopo and KZN as well. The South African health system doesn't fully address access, equity, and quality. And this is where Sphere works with peri-urban and rural communities to improve their health and quality of life. And we do this through addressing social determinants of health and the SDG goals through our village health guides, who are the people you're going to see in this video. They deliver healthcare solutions such as outreach and home-based care managed and clinically guided by doctors. So it's a little bit different to what we normally know as community-based services. We are privileged today to have prepared a video for you on behalf of Sphere, sharing personal perspectives of what you can call the real housewives of the West Coast, the district in the Western Cape. We are indeed honored to have one of those women that are in this video attending this session today. We salute Candice Van Dam, who is among us, for the privilege of her brave thoughts that she shared with us on this Women's Day. As we watch this video, we're asking that you reflect deeply about our counterparts across the country and the continent and beyond. And we'd like to thank the women who participated in this work. Thank you. Chrissy, if you can play us that video, thank you.
Let me be a woman, 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 woman. I can be a woman, 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 woman. Let me be a woman, 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 woman. I can be a woman, 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 woman. What you need, she give tenfold, come here, papa, plant your seed. She can grow right from her womb or family. Provide loving, overlooked and unappreciated. You see, you can reciprocate. I got delicious taste. You need a woman's touch in your place. Just protect her and keep her safe. Baby, worship my hips and waist. So feminine with grace. I touch your soul when you hear me say, boy, let me be a woman. Let me be a woman. Woman, woman, woman. I can be a woman, 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 woman. Let me be a woman, 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 woman. I can be a woman.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Blanche Boise, and what I can say about the corruption in South Africa, how it affects me as a single parent, the struggle is real. We struggle with electricity because the units that we get for a certain amount is very little. The increase with the power unit is affecting us in a very bad way. So now we must do option 2 to also have gas, to cook food on the gas, to save on electricity. And then we also have this corrupted police people here in our neighborhood that bully innocent people. They just come and assault you for unnecessary things. And if you go make a case, nothing happens about it. And the criminal activities in my neighborhood is very bad. We have shootings most of the time, but we have the alert on the groups where people will alert us to say in that specific area we must be careful or go to your house. The people are shooting. Yeah, so the gangsters, I don't know, the police don't have any control over it. Financially, I don't know where we're gonna end up because unemployment is very, very bad in Saldanha. So when you got work, you must keep it and work because lot of children, lot of people are unemployed and the poverty rate is rising. So yeah, I don't actually see anything like a brighter future because it only gets from bad to worse. So yeah, the struggle is real and I think it's not fair. There's people in South Africa that they sorted, they well off, they crook everywhere. You don't have that trust in people anymore. They give you phone calls for policies and stuff. It looks like everybody just wants to rob you. So yeah.
Hi, my name is Funika Ntomi. I'm a village health guide. I work for Sphere Convention. Corruption affects my daily life because of the state that we live or the society or the community we living in. It's a struggle to get a job because of corruption. We have to pay for job or you must sleep with people at high ranks in order for you to get a job. You go through interviews and write tests and stuff, but your results are given to someone else. So for me, corruption, it affects in that way because I don't even have money to pay for a job. I don't even have money to do whatever. But now in order to succeed in that thing, you must pay.
Hi, my name is Rosa. I'm here to speak on corruption. Corruption as a healthcare worker affects me daily. It affects me at my work. It can affect me when I'm in need of police service, when I'm in need of government service, when I'm in need of ESCOM. Corruption doesn't just affect me, but it affects the next generation, those who come from me and my husband. That's how bad corruption is, and it will impact not just the children's school life, it will also impact their social life. That's how bad corruption is for me. And I'm here to say corruption needs to stop. Bribery needs to stop. Dishonesty needs to stop.
My name is Anisiwe Ntomi. I work for Sphere Organization. I'm gonna talk about how corruption affects my daily life as a woman of South Africa. I'm gonna talk about economic instability. Corruption can lead to economic instability, which may affect employment, opportunities, access to credit, and the overall cost of living. Corruption can divide funds intended to public service such as healthcare, education, and infrastructure.
As a white woman in South Africa, I'm aware that I hold a lot of privilege, and I don't deny that. However, corruption affects us all. If I were to call the police because I have an emergency, I'm not convinced they will come. And if they do, I'm not convinced that the perpetrators will be held accountable, or will they just be released? ESCOM is a problem for all of us. We're unable to do our work, and we're unable to do what needs to be done at home. We're unable to cook for our families, and we're unable to ensure that their needs are met. We also have the problem with schools. Many children are turned away from schools because there's not enough space, which is quite ridiculous considering the amount of unemployed teachers. Many children are not given a space in the schools, and then the families are forced to do homeschooling or make alternative arrangements that are far more costly. This affects the whole family. and particularly mothers. Corruption makes life really difficult for everyone, and especially women in South Africa.
Thanks, Chrissy. I think the closing statement that we would like to make is the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. When we have good governance and public accountability, which are not just political ideals, if they are the foundation of society, where every individual, especially women, can thrive, then we have built something to be proud of. It's a nation that can sustain us all. Thank you so much. Thanks, Chrissy.
Thank you so much, Dr. Puni, for that excellent presentation and for also amplifying the voices of women and how they are affected, by the different levels of corruption in their daily lives. There's nothing more relatable and more practical than, a grassroots approach and just understanding the lived realities of different women, in different environments. We are going to move to the next speaker as we await for Ms. Zakona Mvelase to log in. We're going to invite now Ms. Sarah Hamuda from the African Peer Review Mechanism, who is going to speak to us about aligning anti-corruption strategies with the Sustainable Development Goals. Sarah has 12 years of experience in international cooperation and development. She currently holds a prestigious position at the African Peer Review Mechanism. She leads the Agenda 2063 and SDGs governance program and the South to South cooperation portfolio for the APRM, which is based in Johannesburg. Previously, Sarah has worked with the Egyptian Ministry of International Cooperation, the European Investment Bank, and other global organizations. She is a PhD candidate currently at the Stellenbosch University and holds a dual master's in international development from Hankook University in South Korea and a governance qualification from the University of Witwatersrand in South Africa. Alongside with a diploma in peace promotion and a political science bachelor's qualification. She continues to contribute to the African integration and governance research and serves on the Mo Ibrahim Governance Index panel, and she was also recognized among Egypt's top 50 influential women for her leadership and service. Welcome, Ms. Sarah Hamuda.
Thank you very much, Chrissy. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Perfect. No, good morning, colleagues, and thank you very much for the kind introduction and a happy International Women's Day. I'm very honored to be here. Thank you very much also, Madam Moderator, for the introduction. Dear Professor Ndevu, Stellenbosch University, Professor George Scott at the African Association for Public Administration, and also Ms. Dalmani, Special Investigation Unit. Thank you very much for having me today. I'm honored to support our great partners, APAM and Good Governance Africa, School of Public Leadership at Stellenbosch University in convening this event. As previous speakers highlighted, corruption has been a gross-rooted phenomena in most African countries, and I really, really admire the video presented by Dr. Bindi, because simply my phone was just got stolen a few days ago and the police couldn't do anything to assist me. So I want to say that during the past 2 decades, we noticed that the nature and type of corruption becomes complex and diverse than before. Beyond the corruption, across government bodies which derail civil service delivery, the growing crisis of illicit financial flows in Africa, along with financial and economic challenges, exacerbated the impact of corruption in our societies. And of course, women are amongst the most affected groups by these practices. The Sustainable Development Goals, as my previous speaker highlighted, also adopted in 2015, highlighted that SDG 16, which aims to strengthen public institutions and peaceful society, is equally fighting corruption. This was seen to achieve reporting on the average of citizens who have been engaged with civil servants to pay bribe for service and similar to the private sector. On the other hand, Agenda 2063, our continental vision and the African Union vision for integration emphasize that building capable institutions and fighting corruption are key goals of Aspiration 3, which aims to improve good governance and rule of law in the continent. After almost 10 years of the adoption of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and Agenda 2063, the African Union and the UN agencies, guided by the UN-AU framework for the implementation of both agendas, configured various efforts to eliminate corruption at national levels in Africa. Having that said, statistics also showed that reporting on corruption remains a challenge for many African countries. Furthermore, despite the statistical benefits of reporting on corruption, African countries believe that it's also necessary to report on the success stories and affirmative measures and affirmative actions taken to eliminate corruption. The International Corruption Perception Index have shown that expectations to reduce corruption in Africa haven't been met, despite efforts made by a few countries like Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal, Ghana, Morocco, Egypt, Mauritius, Kenya, Tanzania. The evaluation of the second 10-year implementation plan, the first 10-year implementation plan in 2023 referred that the performance of Africa by 2023 on corruption was not met. It was seen that corruption will be falling down to 30% across the continent, but we only stood at 33%. Now moving to the substance of this event and how can the narrative be changed, or how can we do a paradigm shift in the remaining 5 years to achieve the SDGs, but also to empower women to also contribute to corruption fighting. Well, I think in this paradigm shift, we also need to talk about how we are measuring corruption, because it's worth highlighting that the anti-corruption phenomenon has been equally highlighted as one of the targets as pertinent to SDG 16, as I mentioned, but also much more can be done to capture the good practices and also what are taking place at national level. Therefore, we need to set the African perception on anti-corruption, which is also, I believe, Prof. Pillay is part of the research team who is working on it. The methodological background of this, that we do not want to only count on statistics when it comes to corruption, but also count on actions taking place on the ground in order to eliminate corruption, especially the institutional element of it. Then connecting to this also, I'm glad to say that in the second 10-year implementation plan of Agenda 2063, we as a technical working group of Agenda 2063, we have been setting now a goal for ensuring that African institutions are responsive, and also that our leadership are capable enough to lead the country and to lead the continent. And therefore, there will be a new target to ensure that 70% of the public acknowledge the public service to be professional, and also at least 60% of citizens perceive that there is an absence of corruption in public institutions and branches of government. There is also current discussion on ensuring that alongside the international perception of the International Corruption Perception Index, we also have the African Perception Index, given the specificities of our continent. Second, I think also that women empowerment can be a game changer to fight corruption. In sub-Saharan Africa, every year we have 100 to 120 billion economic losses because of the lack of women empowerment in economy. Women's disempowerment, shaped by factors like socioeconomic inequalities, cultural norms, makes women more disproportionately vulnerable to corruption. Further, the status of conflict in our continent and post-conflict situation exacerbated the women's reality and fate as victims of corruption in conflict environment. Third point is that African countries should also leverage on the international and continental platforms to reflect Africa's position and progress on anti-corruption issues. The South African leadership of G20 is definitely a great change a great chance for many African countries and for our continent to set its own agenda when it comes to gender equality and how this contributes to anti-corruption policies. Also, Africa's mineral resources and the mining sector in general are exposed to a level of corruption that shall be highlighted. If we really meant to address corruption, we should not only focus on the corruption across the government, but also private sector. And fourth and last point, Madam Chair, is that definitely as APRM, as African Union Organization, we highly value the peer learning and knowledge sharing between African countries. Despite good practices at national level, we often notice that there is a lack of communication exchange between African countries to know what are the best practices to fight corruption and disciplines and ways to fight corruption. I think we have been working closely with Prof. Pillay to have anti-corruption toolkit, which is going to be like a diagnostic toolkit to collaborate with member states and also in collaboration with APAM, our long-lasting partner, to generate some information and also a narrative on how corruption is tackled by different countries. And we hopefully try to conclude and consolidate this toolkit by the end of this year. So I hope we can keep this conversation forward. And I would like to stop here and thank you for listening to me today. And once again, a very happy International Women's Day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for your remarks and for shedding in some light on the agenda 2063 as well as the SDGs. We appreciate your expertise and your value and leadership within the African region and within the AU. We are now going to move on with the program. I'd like to apologize on behalf of Prof from the W20, who has been unable to join us today because she's not feeling well and is recovering. She does send her wishes and support to the webinar and does wish us well and sends her apologies as she is recovering in the comfort of her home. We are now going to move on then to Dr. Purity Gitonga from Ameru Professional Association in Kenya, who is going to speak to us on African women leading the fight against corruption. Dr. Purity holds a PhD in business administration from the University of Nairobi and is an esteemed author, ethical leadership and governance trainer, and an anti-corruption advocate. She has received numerous accolades, including the Pan-African Award of the Most Influential Woman in 2018. I did say that, we have amazing and phenomenal women and speakers lined up. She has also received the Your Excellency Awards in Education in 2024. With over 16 years of experience, she has significantly contributed to the ethics and integrity space in the public service and education. She currently chairs the Ameru Professional Association and serves as CEO and founder of Ascend International Center for Ethical Leadership and Training, known as the AICE LT, and holds positions at the Strathmore University and the International Leadership University. She is passionate about developing leaders of integrity and advocating for women's and men's roles in society. She runs various training programs globally. We are honored and privileged to have you this morning. Welcome, Dr. Purity.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be part of today's webinar and to celebrate International Women's Day. So I say happy International Women's Day. Allow me to do a presentation on today's topic, African women leading the fight against corruption. I started by appreciating that we are women and therefore we celebrate our being women, and all women who have broken barriers and broken the glass ceilings. We celebrate you. We celebrate ourselves. and we shine a light on ourselves. Happy International Women's Day. I started by asking, what does it mean to be a woman that we should celebrate this day? And I picked a few thoughts. One is that from time of creation, women are referred to as Kenendo, Esa Kenendo, meaning a strong power, suitable helper. And this is from biblical perspective. Women hold up half the sky. This is a statement that was given by a former chairman of a Chinese political party, that we hold up a half the sky, and that we have innate qualities, potential capabilities, and that women are powerhouses. And therefore, in view of these abilities, capabilities, potentials, then women in Africa can fight this vice that we call corruption. Therefore, we are powerhouses. And the minute we appreciate ourselves as powerhouses who can break barriers, then I'm sure we can make progress in the fight against corruption. I looked at some of the women powerhouses in Africa. Indeed, we've been blessed to have women take the topmost position in Africa as presidents, in parliament as chief justices, etc. And therefore, the question that I raise is that when women take up these positions, what is it that they're able to do in promoting integrity and fighting the vice of corruption? It's one thing to occupy a position, it's another thing to have impactful influence on the vice. Now, on corruption, Africa, and I picked a number, just this, to illustrate that Africa is one of the regions in the world that is most affected by corruption. So many countries, we tend to score below the regional score of 32%, quite a number of African countries. And everywhere, sometimes there are riots, that corruption is killing us. Corruption is killing us. Given that, then, we've a lot to do about this vice. Therefore, the guiding questions in this presentation is, in what ways are women impacted by corruption? That has already been said by the previous presenters, and thank you very much. Are women inherently less corrupt than men? Are women fairer in matters of corruption than men? What positions must women hold to make a difference? Must you be at the very top level for you to make a difference in the fight against corruption? How can we as women wake up the sleeping giant in us and fight corruption? Would increased participation of women in government lead to honest governments? These are some of the questions, given time, that would lead our discussion. Allow me to pick on what some of the authorities in the areas of corruption have said. UNODC has stated that corruption disappropriately affects the vulnerable population, and particularly the women are the hardest hit because they represent a higher share of the world's poor. And that's why we're having this discussion today. The African Union, on the other hand, says that corruption has stolen futures in Africa. I take that statement with a heavy heart, that indeed corruption has stolen futures in Africa. Of course, we've discussed how women are denied access to healthcare, how they're exploited sexually, how they are denied access to justice, and how they are denied participation in politics, in policy decision-making, and even in government. This is just an example of some of the ways in women suffer because of lack of service delivery to them, or they have to part with a bribe, or indirectly engage in sexual favors for them to get that service. Therefore, asking ourselves back to the question, are women more or less corrupt than men? Therefore, the need for us, in the course of time, to discuss the gender dimension to corruption. And that's very important. A lot of research is required in that area. My focus was on women against corruption, and what African women can do to take the lead against corruption, that women can become beacons of integrity. And that prayer, the wish I would want to emphasize on, that as women, we can be beacons of integrity, given that we are the most affected by corruption in many, many areas, education, justice, health, among others that we've already mentioned. The good news is that some studies suggest that listed companies with a greater number of women in decision-making positions perform better in terms of ethics, corruption, and they perform better financially. So there is hope. And for that reason, we can be beacons of integrity. Studies also suggest that increasing the share of women in male-dominated workplaces can, or institutions could, disrupt embedded corruption. However, again, more research needs to be done to appreciate fully the underlying causes of this effect. Further studies indicate that when women lead investments in healthcare, in education, or social places, the benefits, the larger society benefits. This is according to the International Monetary Fund in 2018. While a political scientist too, 1993, has argued quite forcefully that when women bring enriching values to government. So going by those studies, by different institutions and persons, there's hope. And there's hope that women can add their voice, can do much, can change the trend as far as the fight against corruption is concerned. Nevertheless, I put a rider, opportunity can affect that. So, because sometimes women tend to be equally tempted to engage in corruption. Having said that, then what have some of the researchers and scholars said about corruption as far as women are concerned? I picked this scholar who was very positive, and this is Dora, 2001. He said that women are less likely to sacrifice common good for private gain. And he continues to state that women exhibit a helping behavior. Women tend to vote based on social issues. Women take stronger stances on ethical behavior, and women behave more generously when faced with economic decisions. So women have certain characteristics that can enable them be beacons of integrity and be the people to lead in the fight against corruption in Africa. Indeed, I put there how a woman can be a beacon of integrity, because a beacon is the one that illuminates light and shows light and direction to other people. So therefore, I put a quote there. A woman of integrity is one who does what is good, what is right, regardless of the personal, political, financial, or professional costs, and does not do this sometimes, but does all the time. And for this reason, women can be beacons of integrity, a light to society, a light to humanity, a light to community, a light to the family. And I looked at the news in Africa and in Kenya, and I was able to pick examples of African women in Nigeria and in other countries who are leading in the fight against corruption. In Kenya, we have 3 women who have been highlighted by the media as doing a commendable, profound job in the fight against corruption. We have the lady, president of the Law Society of Kenya, lady in charge of accounting audits in Kenya, and lady in charge of the budget. Those are very, very important dockets in our country, and they are leading a light in the fight against corruption, in promoting accountability, transparency, and integrity. So what then should women of integrity do to fight, to eliminate, to reduce the levels of corruption in Africa? As I've said earlier, quite a number of African countries are scored below the regional score of 32%. Most of them score about 20, 13, 27%. Therefore, what characteristics, what strategies, what practices, what disciplines should women have to enable in the fight against corruption? One, simple things is to be honest, is to be accountable for the actions, is to be humble. Humility attracts, is to have ethical fortitude, is to understand other people before they pass judgment, is to treat all people well. It is to have strong moral principles. It is to keep their word. Simple characteristics that we can endeavor as women. As we celebrate today's Women International Day, I think those are some of the characteristics. I can identify which of these I would wish to grow and to nurture in my character. Somebody said, a woman of integrity means to tell no lies. Her honesty is her beauty. She's smart in the head and courageous in the heart. She's confident in herself and compassionate in her thoughts. She's independent, able, strong, and graceful. These are the qualities that we women, African women, can nurture, can develop, can grow in efforts to eliminate, to fight corruption, and to promote integrity and accountability. I pick on building our competence as one of the ways in which we African women can lead in the fight against corruption. As the previous slide noted, a woman of integrity is smart in the head and courageous in the heart and is knowledgeable. Therefore, I urge all of us as women celebrating this International Day that we may develop our knowledge, that we upscale our experiences, our competencies, and our actual technical skills in the jobs that we do in the respective fields, in the respective sectors, that we build our confidence if we are to fight against corruption. Other strategies, practices, and disciplines that women can engage in is one, to lobby for strong enabling legislative framework, because for any fight against corruption to be successful, we need laws that are strong, that take care of all the gaps in the fight against corruption. Women need to be empowered by increasing their numbers when it comes to parliamentary representation or in government. In the C-suite, we need women in those positions because they bring with them very unique characteristics, abilities, and skills. And that would complement what the other gender would bring. We need women to have higher literacy levels. I'm thinking as a professional and a professional association in my counties that there are so many girls who are dropping out of school, and therefore I'm concerned about that. Therefore, we need to raise the literacy levels for girls, increase awareness of our rights. Women have to upscale in terms of skills that we've said, and in terms of confidence. We need to step out of the comfort zone and ask, what can we do? Sometimes it's risky. No wonder we say it requires a lot of courage. We need to lead by example. And I take this very, very personally as I end, that I imagine a woman at home with the children, with the husband, with the relatives, and other significant people. And the example that she leads through their talk, through their speech, through their actions, and through the way they interact, children are observing. So what is it that the young generation are observing from us as women? And I want to believe that we can be the beacon of integrity through our speech, our talk and actions at home. In one of the studies I did, I noted, according to what women reported, is that their level of confidence was at 60%. Another study cited that 34% of the women lacked confidence. This is one of the things that we need to do, among other qualities, abilities, and skills of assertiveness, of task orientation, of self-awareness, of humility, and integrity. This is because, according to Cummings, a masculine style tends towards assertive and task behavior, while a feminine one is more relational oriented. And men are seen to be successful when they adopt the feminine approach. Now that we have it naturally, let's make use of those abilities, skills, and feminine styles that we have, that God granted to us naturally. As a parting shot, women, African women, can lead and are leading in the fight against corruption by becoming beacons of integrity in our home setup, in the communities we live in the small groups we belong to, in the nation, and in the international field through the offices, the positions, and the responsibilities we hold. As a parting shot, I say, women hold half the sky and our powerhouses, but we'll never attain integrity if we lack the courage to stand for what we believe is right and what is our right. Our wants must be followed by our actions and accomplishments in the areas of policy and institutional reform. And I want to believe that women will make a difference in Kenya, in your country, in Africa, in the world. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Purity. That was a beautiful presentation and session. And indeed, I couldn't agree more that women in Africa are the beacons of integrity and the leaders of the fight against corruption. I remember a gentleman once said to me that if there's anybody who's going to change the world, it's women who are going to change the world. And we see this with the leaders that are arising in our continent and in the world, with the rising number of leaders in both the private and public sector, with the female presidents. In the past, it used to be an argument of female-headed households, and now we have, female presidents who are effectively leading nations. And indeed, we are seeing ourselves as the beacons of integrity. Well articulated, and thank you for your remarks. We are now moving on with the program, and to facilitate the question and answer section, firstly, I'd like to thank all the participants who are sending questions through to the chat functionality. We are now going to have the official question and answer session that's going to be facilitated by Moketsi Koela. Kindly raise your hand if you have a question, a comment, or a contribution. If you raise your hand, then our host and tech team will be able to give you access to speaking. I'd like to now introduce Moketsi, who is an education and training officer of the Youth Activism Program at the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, also known as the AKF, and serves as the chairperson of the National Youth Coalition, known as the NYC. Moketsi serves in the Foundation for National Dialogue Progress, representing the AKF. He previously held a project assistant role responsible for training and development at the Development and Leadership Unit, known as the DLU, in the Center for Student Development at the University of Witwatersrand. He holds a master's in sociology from the Wits University, a Bachelor of Arts in Sociology, and a Bachelor of Arts degree as well. He is an African Youth Volunteer at the African Youth Volunteer Corps, and as well as with the African Union, and an alumni of the Democracy Works Academy. Let's welcome Moketsi, who will facilitate our Q&A session. Please do remember to raise your hands so that you can be acknowledged and given access to the speaking platform, as well as thank you for the questions that have come through to the Q&A section. Moketsi, over to you.
Thank you so much, Program Director, for your wonderful job, and happy International Women's Day to all the participants, the speakers, and every woman in the world. So colleagues, mine is to really facilitate this Q&A session. So just like a few ground rules. So if you maybe have a comment or you want to say something, but maybe you're not comfortable speaking, you're also most welcome to just pop a chat in the chat box and I'll be able to read through that. And then I'll also be able to take their hands. I already see that we have one hand. Cheryl Mohammed Saeed, I note you and I will take you just now. But colleagues, yeah, much has been said by our esteemed panelists around the significance of International Women's Day. But of course, I think from the video that we saw from Dr. Puni's work and the Women in the Cape is, giving us a sense of the everyday lived experiences of being a woman, particularly in impoverished areas or in our townships and formal areas, and all the other areas that we find ourselves living in. So I think not to waste time, because we do have 10 minutes for this session, I do note the comment or question that has been made by Godfrey Kiriago, who notes that, the worst corruption at the workplaces, institutions of higher learning, among other soft spots, is when women are discriminated against and made to surrender their moral fabric to grow or achieve their expectations. And I think the question here is, can there be cross-border institutional frameworks to check this and any other form of abuse of women at the workplaces and other institutional settings? And perhaps if I can maybe address this question to our colleagues at the G20 Anti-Corruption Unit, Ms. Tenjiwe. So the question is around, can there be cross-border institutional frameworks to check this and any other form of abuse at the workplaces and other institutional settings? And Ms. Tenjiwe, I'm directing it to you because I'm just also trying to, make use as well of this G20 W20 moment that we find ourselves in, not only as a country in South Africa, but really given that the presidency of the G20 is also seen as Africa's G20. If you can maybe address this from your perspective, specifically around what are those cross-border institutional frameworks we can maybe tap into around addressing women discrimination, but also corruption that affects women, particularly in the workplaces. Ms. Tenjiwe?
Thank you for the question. Yes, as the country, we are not only looking at South Africa. As you know, that the G20 is part of all the countries that are represented at G20. Some of the policies, and we always say that, let me start here, we always say that corruption has no borders. So one of the critical things that as we work and anti-corruption, we had MOUs with different countries in different spheres. So those are the things that are possible, and also as part of the discussions as this going forward, the plenary for anti-corruption. We're looking at also mostly on the vulnerable sectors as well, on the health, and also in others, those that we call it the vulnerable sectors, to see whether there's any cross-border that we can forge as currently as we are hosting the G20. Thank you.
Great stuff. Thank you so much, Ms. Tenjiwe. And I like that, right? That corruption has no borders, right? So it's all, our responsibility to curb it. Can I recognize Cheryl as one of our participants, Cheryl Mohammed Saeed?
Good morning, Moketsi. My question is for Sarah Hamuda. Given that we don't seem to be meeting those deadlines in terms of the 2030 agenda, and we probably will have another set of agenda beyond 2030, what do you think that we are getting wrong that we need to get right in the next round?
Thank you so much for that question, Cheryl. Sarah, if you can just please engage on that question, this question around, we have, these platforms are there, right? For example, even the Beijing Declaration, and so many things are promised, there are these nice documents and all those things. But again, it seems that, we are lacking in terms of implementation. Sarah? Is Sarah here?
Hi, Moketsi. I believe Sarah had another engagement that she had to leave and rush to, but we will definitely channel the question to her and possibly if you can give us your details, Cheryl, we will get her to maybe email you directly. In the meantime, I'd recommend that you allow the other panelists to respond to the question. Thank you.
Cool stuff. Thank you so much. I see Rose Seretse has a hand up. Do you perhaps want to address that question, Rose?
No, I have a question to ask.
Okay.
Well, can I go ahead?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, and I appreciate the presentations from the panelists. My question is that with all the capabilities that as women we know we have, why is it that there's a lack of woman-to-woman support in most instances? You take politics, you take position of leadership, it's very rare that a woman will support the other. In fact, the first bullet will be coming from a fellow woman when one wants to stand up for an office. So I just want to find out from the panel, particularly from Dr. Purity, what is it that women can do to support one another instead of being the enemy of the other? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rose, for that important question. Very important indeed. Dr. Chidonga, would you come in and answer that question around, why it seems that there's lack of woman-to-woman support, and oftentimes I think how the question is framed is, why it's like we are our own enemies, right? It's even like us as young people, right? Whenever one is running for public office or is trying to do something, your first attacks come from your own constituency, quote unquote. Dr. Purity?
Thank you very much indeed for that question. It's a question I often ask myself because I experienced that. I happen to have been in leadership positions, either at organizational level or women groups, let me say in the church and social groups. And you realize that the people who pull you down are women. And I consider it to be very unfortunate. I tend to feel or take it that women are rather competitive amongst themselves, and negatively so. If it was a positive competition, that to me would be fine. But we are rather competitive and negatively so. We don't want to see the other lady or woman rise. And my personal take has always been, and I keep on saying this, that if in an organization when you applied for that job, you didn't know the presence or the existence of the other person, you did so as an individual. And therefore, let everybody try their luck. And whoever is picked, that's them. And it is their turn, it's their time. You cannot occupy two people cannot occupy the same positions. Nevertheless, I always encourage myself that I must always have something that I'm offering, something substantive, something good, something positive that I have to offer, so that women may begin, or my colleagues or whoever it is, may begin to recognize and appreciate. So my take is to develop myself so that I have something positive to offer. The second take is that I need to develop an emotional state that I may be able to be calm even when I see opposition. So two aspects, the personal, the me, and two, the skills. And I think with that, I'm able to overcome the opposition. So I would have loved to also hear what other people say, but ordinarily that's what I've experienced and that's what I would say. Developing self that I offer something substantive, and being calm and listening and see where I can improve. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chidonga, for that. In the Q&A section, there's a question for the colleagues, the panels around, and this comes from Elena Rachel Chakwamba Piri. And she says, as the only female leader in Sanje and Chikwakwa district in Malawi, where patriarchy society dominates, I wish to be empowered on human rights so that I lead my people better, and even those in the region and national, through studying human rights. How can I be empowered on this, right? She says she wants to become a champion for human rights, and she also leaves her contact details for us there in terms of reaching this. Dr. Puni, I want to pose this to you, and the reason why is because, I mean, I think the video that you showed us and the work that you guys are doing with Sphere, you know, for me, it showed us the everyday lived experiences of citizens on the ground, certainly not only on South African ground, but I think this happens, I think, even from what the other panelists shared around, you know, their research and the work that they've conducted, you know, and perhaps I want to link Elena's question around what can we do in terms of like, maybe, do we need to come up with civic education workshops, you know, particularly targeted at young people to explore these different forms of corruption, whether it's bribery, whether it's extortion, which actually affects women, you know, whether it's misappropriation of resources and all those things. Because I think what your video did was to show us, you know, the ways in which communities are impacted by corruption whenever, you know, for example, an electrical company comes into town to store your electricity meter and all those things, but they're asking for money from communities. Dr. Puni, if you can come in on this. Dr. Puni, are you with us? All right, I'll take that silence that maybe Dr. Puni is struggling with maybe connection. Can I perhaps maybe redirect this question to our colleagues who presented earlier on from the APAM Secretariat? Do we still have the colleagues from APAM? All right, I'll take that silence. Elena, we will get to your question. And again, I think as the program director directed us, what we will do is that we will also, you know, oh, I see Yoliswa has unmuted herself. Yoliswa, do you want to take this one?
Well, I just wanted to comment on the question around how women support each other. And I just wanted to say, from my own experiences of growing up in various sectors, particularly the women's sector, and working in government, I don't think it's luck. I have come across very good women who have nurtured and who have supported me. And so I don't necessarily think that it's every woman who is going to pull another woman down. I think Mam Togombomlwana is probably joined here. She was once a chairperson of a board that I was a CEO at in a public entity, and gave me amazing support and contributed to my growth significantly as a female leader in that institution. As a result, I adopted her as my mother. Even today, she's still my mentor and my leader. So I'm reflecting on this because I always hear bad things coming out when women speak about each other, but I think we must also acknowledge those women who do well. So I think it depends on a person. It depends on the ethics and the integrity of a person and the values of a person, whether the person is a woman or not. So perhaps we should strengthen the education, the engagements, informed by, you know, a values alignment, adopting good values, values of supporting each other, and you know, the integrity and ethics. I think for me, it's important every time we meet as women also to reinforce each other and be able to use those platforms to share good news amongst each other as well and affirm each other. What sometimes leads to competition is because we may not be doing enough to affirm each other at times, but also competition is fine as long as it's healthy. I think women can still compete with each other, but it does not mean not supporting each other because you are competing with each other. So, Sis Rose, and again, it's great to see you here, Sis Rose, one of the leaders that I've come across recently that I respect so much, who has also been very supportive on a specific work around anti-corruption that I've been involved in. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Yolisa. And again, less competition, more collaboration, and mentorship as well. There is good work that's been done. Colleagues, I only have a minute left, and so I will wrap up with some of the queries. And again, to all the participants who've been sending the queries, as Chrissy said, our program director, we will make sure that we respond to them via email and again, open up the space, right? So Tobias and Naukuri was saying, in light of this year's International Women's Day theme, what concrete steps can policymakers and organizations take to bridge gender gaps in leadership and economic empowerment, particularly in sectors where women remain underrepresented, right? And another comment from Jennifer Jelesani, that given that corruption disproportionately affects women, particularly those in vulnerable positions, how can governments and international organizations ensure that anti-corruption strategies incorporate gender-responsive measures that address both financial and non-financial forms of corruption, such as sexual extortion or sextortion and systemic exclusion, right? And the last one really from, Regina Bakita says, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. My question is it possible to mobilize fellow women to start a women movement that can work with anti-corruption agencies for social change? Particularly, even in municipalities, and certainly some of the colleagues here have been speaking about, building, that women's movement that actually does this work. So colleagues, this is where I wrap up. And like I said, the questions, keep them coming. The colleagues will do our best to, populate them together and send them to our panelists to make sure that each of you are covered. Program Director, can I hand over to you, please?
Thank you very much, Mogeti, for your excellent facilitation of the Q&A session. We are very grateful for the engagement in the Q&A box, and we are, going to export the CSV of the Q&A. And for those that have not been responded to in the meeting, we will direct your questions to the panelists, who will then respond to you via email. We appreciate the time and dedication that you have taken to engage in this webinar and to stay connected. We really don't take it lightly. And I'd like to invite now to give us a vote of thanks, Prof. Solosh from the University of Stellenbosch. Prof.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to congratulate our phenomenal speakers today. I think they have brought in their unique perspectives. They've enlightened us and enriched us on a variety of issues that impact on the lives of women. So I'd like to take this opportunity to warmly thank each one of them for their time and efforts to make our event a success. I also would like to thank all our participants. Yes, I think let's give them a round of applause. A round of applause for all our speakers. I think they were dynamic. I think they were awesome, and they added a new voice in support of women empowerment. Well done. Let me also take this opportunity to thank all our participants for gauging from the chat. I can see that there are several issues that need to be discussed, and we need platforms like this so that we are able to engage with each other, especially the question about how women can support other women. And it should be competition instead of, it should be collaboration instead of competition. To all our partners, APAM, the African Association of Public Administration and Management, the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, Corruption Watch, the Department of Public Service and Administration, Good Governance Africa, the National Youth Coalition, the Special Investigating Unit, Sphere, and Stellenbosch University. We thank you for this fantastic collaboration, and in celebration of Women's Day, we appreciate your support and we thank you for your unwavering commitment in women to support women. Ladies and gentlemen, I would also like at this juncture to ask all our steering committee members to put on their camera. These are the people who go out of their way to assist in making events like this a huge success. Can we call upon all our steering committee members? Can we take a picture? Chrissy, Julie, Linda, Ray, are you all online? Please, can you put your cameras on? All of you, can you put your cameras on? These are the people who are behind the scenes trying to work through several difficult challenges given that we are in different corners of the world. Thank you for your amazing support. I am cognizant of time. Just to end, I'd like to say that the world needs strong women to lift other marginalized women so that we can build a future that's sustainable for all. And empowering women and tackling corruption simultaneously is a voice that we must all hear. And we are fortunate to have been surrounded by several role models, our own grandmothers, our mothers, our sisters, our colleagues, our friends, our neighbors. With that, ladies and gentlemen, you are also our role models. Have a beautiful International Women's Day. I hand you over to the chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Prof, for those excellent remarks. Once again, thank you to our technical team and the steering committee, and thank you to you, the ladies and gentlemen who have joined us in celebration and in commemoration of this beautiful day. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for the engagement, and we will respond to your questions via email. Have a lovely International Women's Weekend. Thank you and goodbye.